Hello, everyone. This is Robert Aceves, and we're here for another episode of mindfitpodcast. And I'm here with Neil Babins. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that we're here again. This is our 33rd episode. It's unbelievable, right? That we're still doing it.
30. We should get some sort of award. That's two threes. That's two lucky. I think it's two lucky numbers. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How was your
33.
week?
It's good. It's good. I was just telling you, I don't even think I've been licensed for that long. So,
Really?
yeah, no, I'm kidding. It's been a year and a half, but, yeah, my week was good. It's been busy. A lot of people, chiming in about, again, the pandemic and, the continuation of their new normal changing. And, it's been a long week. I'm adding extra slots and, trying to go away on vacation, trying to do a little bit work-life balance. But every time I set that up, and I have to add extra slots somewhere else for everybody to be seen, and they go
Hmm.
so quickly that it's like I'm trying to get everybody in. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's been
and
crazy.
it's been crazy. And now we're in the June gloom. Well, not we're June gloom in August, era.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I've had a lot of clients too, showing up a lot of anxiety, a lot of issues. It seems like, this is not going to end anytime soon, and it's starting to get people more worried. And now that people are going back to school, that's also another worry for some people. I know some states are, having people go back to school, and here in California, we're not. The kids are not going to go back to school. It's going to be more like an online class from now on. So we'll see how long that lasts.
That's another things that parents are worrying about structure. They used to be able to drop
Hmm.
off their kids for 6 hours or 7 hours and then pick them up again. And now they have to sort of like dump them in their room and turn on the computer and check in, say that they're doing their work. And, I mean, used to be that if you wanted to leave class, you had to ask your teacher. Now, if you want to leave class, you just sort of get up and go. And, so a lot of people are finding a lot of shifts in that way, and the new hybrid. We'll see how that works.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
college students about to go off to college, they don't even know if they're going to be at the campus. They say, the campus is beautiful. I'm like, so what? I mean, I don't think you're going to end up. You're not going to end up there,
yeah.
But so, yeah, a lot of little things that we didn't realize, that are
Hmm.
shifting.
Hmm.
So
The world is changing,
the
which
world's
is
changing.
what brings us to our subject today, abandoning perfect.
Yeah.
We decided to talk about how we have this idea of perfection in our minds, usually, of how things should be. Like we think of college, for example, and we expect, our first year of college to be, in a dorm and, meeting all these new people, living away from home and then going to classes. But then it turns out this year everything seems to be canceled. So we may have to cancel that too, and we may have to just do online classes. And we may, I was thinking about Halloween coming up too. Like, what's going to happen? Are people going to go out, or are they going to stay home? And it's just a lot of questions coming up.
Yeah, everything down from dating to socializing,
Hmm.
getting to know people for the first time, joining new groups, going to college. Exactly, as a big example, kids going back to school, not going back to school. Structure, used to be that one parent would go out or both parents would go out, work during the day, and then come home at night, and there'd be but everything is shifting. People working remotely, so. It's just people don't even, what I found is a lot of my clients that I talk to don't even know what to strive for anymore. They don't know what their goals are anymore, because they used to have a certain checklist that was sort of implemented by old goals, old generational goals, and the way the world was, the framework for the way the world was.
Hmm.
Now that it's shifted so dramatically and we don't know if it's ever going to fall back into the old paradigm, what a lot of people are realizing is, sometimes much to their dismay, but sometimes to break through, that a lot of what they used to think was important, and a lot of what they used to think they were striving for, a lot of things they used to do typically on a weekly basis, is no longer important to them, or they're questioning, was that really important, or it was just there so I did it?
Hmm.
In terms of friend groups, in terms of leisure, hobby and leisure, in terms of how they structured their week. Some people have said to me, I used to work out 5 days a week at the gym. Now I realize I don't need to be there 5 days a week. Twice a week is fine. My body hasn't changed all that much, and or something like that. So a lot of things are becoming like, wait a minute, when I want to say I want to go back to normal, what is that? That normal wasn't normal to begin with. And it took a pandemic for me to realize that. So, you know,
Yeah.
so that perfection, wanting to go back to it, is actually imperfect anyway. And
Hmm.
it took the pandemic for us to realize that there were a lot of imperfections and something we wouldn't have realized had we not had a shift in energy, you
Mhm.
know.
Oh yeah, definitely. Things are changing and shifting in so many ways. One of the things that I love is this philosophy in Japan called Wabi Sabi, and this is where this term comes from. You know, of abandoning perfect, and it's basically this philosophy where you take things that are broken and you see the perfection in that. So, for example, if you have a bowl and it breaks, the way they put it back together is they use gold to, to paste it, and so the gold makes those gaps in the parts where the plate broke stand out, and that makes the plate even better and unique because there's no if you break two plates together, they're going to break differently, they're not going to break the same. And so each bowl is going to be different, and this
Mhm.
comes from Zen Buddhism, and it's a way of embracing that imperfection in the world. If you look at leaves in a tree, they're all going to have some kind of imperfection in some way or another, but yet the sum of it all makes it look really pretty. We
Mhm.
all as human beings are different and unique, and we all have our own things that are perfect and imperfect in some ways, but that's what makes us perfect, that the fact that we're different, that we think differently, that
Mhm.
not everyone's the same. And when we break, that's the when we embrace that brokenness and we accept that we're not perfect, that's what makes us a better person, because we then can move forward and say, okay, yeah, I'm broken, but that doesn't mean that I'm useless. That I'm still someone. It's like a bowl, even though it's broken, we can still use it and practice some kind of happiness in that sense.
Yeah, we're also free to choose when we accept the fact that things are imperfect. Because a lot
Hmm.
of times in my work, people will often try to avoid feeling uncomfortable or feeling pain or feeling anything that's unpleasant, and they will do anything. A lot of energy goes into making things right.
Hmm.
When things seem to go wrong, and they have it that, if you're having a not so great hour or a not so great half day, you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, frustrated, helpless, you're feeling stuck or suffocated or unsure, that's something, somehow something bad that has to be overcome. So that
Hmm.
becomes distressful. But really the truth is, it's like going down a hiking trail. I was thinking of hiking while you were talking, probably because I'm going this weekend, but I was thinking of also because it makes sense. You walk through a beautiful hike, you'll see all kinds of imperfections, alongside the trail or in the mountain or the
Hmm.
range. It's not a perfect mountain range every time you look. The rock is cracked, the tree has fallen. Many trees, especially in California, have fallen. You could see how it happened. If a tree falls in the forest, is anybody here? I don't know, but I can certainly see it. And it doesn't look perfect. It looks like catastrophe. I wouldn't want
Hmm.
to have been there when that tree fell, you know, or a rock slide or something like that. It's almost like something happens, like some sort of catastrophe. But the way it ends up landing, the way it ends up setting itself is absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. But you can't plan that. You can't plan how it landed.
Hmm.
There's a place in Sequoia, I think what's it called, the 100 Giants, the Trail of the 100 Giants. It's basically a trail of trees that have fallen in a certain way, have landed a certain way. One tree even fell on a bridge. There used to be a bridge where passersby could cross over. They didn't touch it. Tree fell on the bridge. It crushed it. You can't go under the bridge. There's not enough room. And you could see the damage that was done. They even left that there as some sort of a sort of poetic visual. And
Beautiful.
it is beautiful. And I
Yeah.
hope somebody wasn't under that tree when it first fell.
I hope not.
That wouldn't be beautiful. But in nature, it really reminded me of that, because there's so many
Hmm.
imperfections that make it perfect, make it so grounding and resetting. And the same thing is about emotions. I was just going to say emotions and moods. It is still, your life could be wonderful. And just because you had a sad morning, or you were feeling angry or frustrated, or you were feeling anxious or whatever it is, it's not necessarily something negative. It's the perfect string of your day, like a hiking trail. You'll see a
Hmm.
tree fallen on your path, and it's beautiful. You climb under it, you climb over it, you go around it, or you turn around and go back if it's that dangerous. You know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
all good.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that that's how you could take the philosophy into everyday life, whether it's hiking or how your day goes at work. You
Hmm.
know, when you ask me how my week is, sometimes I have to think about that, because it really depends when, you know, what section of my week, you know, what section of my day, what minute, you know, what
Yeah.
hour. You know, mood swings are, I mean, within reason, happen all the time. So
Yeah.
my life is a hiking trail. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I get this all the time from people that come, meditate and they start practicing what I do. And a lot of times they become thankful that something bad happened to them, like because of it they came here. They said, if my husband wouldn't have cheated on me, I would have never met you, I would have never started practicing meditation. If
Mhm,
I would never been, raped or molested or something, I would have never looked for some form of, improvement. And now because of it, I'm a better person.
mhm,
So sometimes problems can, break us in some way, but that brokenness can really, help us move forward and look for ways to be better, to improve. And because we've been to those, nasty places, then we can really see life from a different point of view, and we can really appreciate the goodness.
mhm,
Think of Oprah, for example. She's gone through a really rough life, and look at her now. She's
mhm,
very successful. She has a lot of really good things now that people have seen, and she's constantly improving because she went through, rough times. And then, sometimes her weight goes up, sometimes she goes on a diet, loses it. So it's like a big thing that she's working on, but she's constantly looking for ways to improve herself. Now, if she wouldn't have gone through so much, who knows if she would have done any of it?
yeah, who knows if you would have ended up at the end of that equation.
Hmm.
Exactly. I've often thought to myself, had I, when I was born and raised, had I immediately fit in and belonged, you know what I'm saying, and been one of the
Hmm.
popular kids from day one, and everything was smooth and dandy, I might not have had the same motivation to make changes, to make discoveries, to investigate, to search and research. I wouldn't have ended up where I am now, living where I am now, doing what I'm doing now, maybe doing. I would have had the same similar interests. Who knows? But I mean, if I had ended up one of the kids that I wanted to be when I was a kid, that's the
Hmm.
whole thing about perfection. When you're like, say, 15, you want to be like the other 15-year-olds. Oh, going back in time now, I could tell you, please, no. You know what I'm saying? No.
Yeah.
And no offense to my old buddies, but it's like I'm very grateful that I didn't fit in. I'm very grateful I didn't belong.
Hmm.
And as painful as it was, as imperfect as it was, as much of a stumbling block as it was, especially at that age and
Hmm.
adolescence when your brain is on fire and everything is about belonging, because I understand that. But still, in retrospect, I wouldn't not want to go back and blend in,
Hmm.
because I know how many things would not have unfolded for me. You know, I got myself onto a Greyhound, in my early 20s, packed a bag, and that was it. I
Hmm.
never looked. Oh, I looked back, but I never went back. You know, looked over my shoulder a few times, but that was it. So I don't think that would have happened, at least not in the way that it happened, had everything been smoother. So there's a lot of perfect imperfections in everybody's life. It's poetry, you know. It's
Yeah.
poetic.
Yeah, and it's beautiful when you can embrace those things, and the bad things that have happened in our lives. Like, think of relationships. Every time you've had a breakup, if you think about it, eventually you meet somebody else, and then sometimes you find the other person better than the last one,
Hmm.
and then you break up with that person, then you feel like it's the end of the world, and then boom, somebody else comes along that's even better. And
Hmm.
now, because of the experiences you've had, now you know how to treat this new person differently. Obviously, if you've overcome a lot of the other things, then it's probably going to be better. But that's kind of life. You go through certain experiences. If you fail in business and you start a business and you fail, and then you start another one and you fail, eventually you start getting things, right. And then eventually, why, assuming that you learn from these mistakes, how to make it better. And then you see people that are very successful, and it's because they usually went through a lot of, negative, things, and then they suddenly learn from them, and then boom, they reach bigger success in life. So I
Hmm.
think, this philosophy, Wabi Sabi, is really good for people to start seeing the simplicity of life and how things are not perfect. If you look at, even architecture, like some of my favorite architecture buildings are usually not perfect. When you go to Spain and you see this, like really old Spanish buildings, they're really, really not perfect, but that's what makes them so beautiful, that they're not, they
Mm.
don't have to be a certain way. They can be whatever you want them to be in a way.
Hmm. Kind of reminded me again of the forest for the trees statement, the old adage, you're looking at the forest, you're not seeing the trees, because as you stumble through the stumbling blocks of things and things are not perfect. You mentioned learning from mistakes. Also, learning from mistakes as you grow is knowing what to focus on and what not to focus on, so that you're not looking for it to become perfect, because that creates stress and anxiety in
Hmm.
people, are trying to be overly perfect. It's and being able to discard what's not important. In other words, I don't have to look at every fallen tree and say, how come that fell? And you said also about relationships, people like say that I don't want to get hurt again. I might say to them, honestly, I might say, how come? They go, what do you mean, how come? How come you don't want to get hurt again? And they sort of get stumbled, big, who wants to get hurt? I'm like, I'm going to get hurt. I mean, I'm going to go through life. I'm going to go through my hiking trail of life, and I'm going to find fallen trees. I'm going to get bitten by mosquitoes. Hopefully, I'm going to see rattlesnakes that are far from me. You know, think about snakes. I mean,
You're so
yeah,
poetic today.
yeah, it's very, very metaphorical. You stay
Yes.
over there. Okay, fair. You don't want to step on a rattlesnake. Okay, no, but that's different. That's looking out cautiously. Obviously, when you cross the street, you look both ways, and when you're driving, you signal. Oh, well, if you're in LA, sometimes you don't, but you ought to. You ought to be. All right, but I mean, the thing is that as you go through the trail of life, you're going to see a lot of imperfections. I say to people, how come you don't want to get hurt? Getting hurt, feeling sad, feeling stuck, feeling angry, feeling frustrated. That's a part of life. That's the roller coaster of life. That's the imperfection of life. Perfection does not mean the absence of negative feelings or the absence of unpleasant feelings. It means the integration of them, so that you can feel them, experience them, hear them, and have them dissipate naturally. They come
Hmm.
and they go. They don't stay. They linger when you do one of two things: when you avoid them, or when you ruminate on them, when you overthink them, when you give them oxygen to the fire. When you do one of those two things or both, they're going to linger all day and stay with you, and come back more often and more frequently if you try to push them down or if you overthink them. But if you just let them be, that is the poetry of life. That is the beauty of life. So how come you don't want to get hurt again? What do you mean you don't want to get hurt again? You're going to. You're going to, one way or another. And if you try to push that down, you try to avoid all the fallen trees, you're not going to have a hiking trail. You're going to end up crawling along the sides or turning around and coming back. Or you're going to stay where you are. You're going to build your tent right where you are and stay there, which is
Hmm.
another metaphor for life. So it sounds funny when I say it that way. It sounds funky when I say, how come you don't want to get hurt? Like, I understand what people mean. We don't want to walk into the chamber of hurt for no reason, but
Hmm.
we're going to get hurt. So we might as well allow that. We're going to have imperfection. We're going to have, life is going to keep lifing, in small ways, medium ways, and large ways. It's just going to keep lifing. And we don't have to use the big adage, oh, we're all going to die someday. It's like, tell us something we don't know. Never mind, we're going to die someday. We're going to live each day before we die. And in living, you're going to find a lot of fallen trees. You're going to find a lot of imperfections on the trail, so you've got to be able to allow yourself to embrace those so that you are enjoying life. And I think it's the hardest thing in psychology, in therapy, for people to realize, is that you don't come there to try to get rid of all your pain. You try to come there to integrate your pain so that
Hmm.
you can be with it and let it come, dissipate, so you can enjoy everything else as it comes by you as well. So your pain's not hijacking you. I'm
Yeah.
saying that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and this philosophy, you could say that you could take some of those trees that are fallen and make wood to start a fire and keep you warm,
If you're allowed, watch for the
if you're
park
allowed.
rangers. Yeah, watch for
Yes.
the park rangers. They're very sensitive about that. Yeah,
Right.
but yeah,
Yeah, and the
yeah.
idea is to use the whatever happened to you in order to do something better with it. So the philosophy also talks about using things that we have on a regular basis, and we have this idea that these things have to be a certain way, but once they get old, maybe those things are not perfect anymore, but that doesn't mean we have to throw them away. We can still use them, figure out a way to use them in maybe other ways. Let's say, for example, you have an old shirt that has a lot of holes in it. Maybe you can use that as a rag. Or, if you have some kind of a car that's really old, if it still works and you can fix it and figure out ways to use it, You can use it as a garden, for example. I don't know, there's multiple ways of using things, and the idea is to open up your mind and to see things as being useful, even yourself. If we are, for example, overweight, and we want to do sports, maybe we can go into wrestling, or we can do some kind of sport that allows people to, who are overweight, to do it. The idea is to do things that really make us happy, that we can use in our regular lives, and to think that we're not useless just because we have some kind of imperfection, that there are things that we can do. If you're really quiet, maybe you don't like doing a lot of things, you're very lazy, maybe you can be a private security guard, and just sit somewhere all day long and get
Yeah,
paid for that.
that's
There's
it.
usually something you can do to make your life better, if you understand who you are, what you like. If you're someone who loves to talk, maybe you can be a radio host and have your own radio show, or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the question is just taking a look at if a person feels that they're shutting down and withdrawing from life, and that's why they want to sit there all day. That's one thing. But if that it really is your groove, you know what I'm saying? As
Hmm.
imperfect as it might be to some other people, for you, it's the perfect scenario.
Hmm.
I learned the hard way, the very hard way. I'm sure most of us, a lot of us have. That I'm just, and I say this with the most, in the most delicate of ways. I'm not really a person who can work well for other people. I'm
Hmm.
not a good employee. I'm not good. I'm not good having a boss. I'm not good. True. My mother used to say it. She's right. You don't like to be told what to do. Bravo, mom. You're right. I don't. I don't like to be told what to do. And it's not, I wondered if it was a defense mechanism for a long time, and I peeled it apart. Some of it is, but most of it was not. Most of it is I have a very independent spirit. True that I gained throughout the years. It's not, I wasn't necessarily born with all of that, but I'm just saying where I landed was in a place where I need to work for myself. I
Hmm.
need to be my own boss. I need to have my own business. I need to call my own shots. Not only my own shots, not that I can't listen to somebody else, but I can't be under somebody else's authority for too long and expect to be at my best, is I guess is the best way I could put that. You know, so it's important to know what's a defense mechanism and what's genuinely you. And like you said, want to sit and be a security guard, and that's fantastic. We need them. I need security. We need people. We need people to do everything that we do. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So, absolutely. And some people don't like school. They're not into academics. They just say,
exactly.
I tried
Yeah.
school. It's not for me."
Hmm.
Great. Then being a mom and a grandma and a family person, or you know, doing whatever you do that doesn't require school, I'm saying, you could still do it really, really well. You could learn how to knit and sell them online. You don't have to go to school for that. Well,
Hmm.
maybe for business, but yeah. So also made me think of it when you said about the cars. There's a trail. I can't remember where it is now. It's somewhere in Southern California where there's an actual car. Oh, and I think in Mulholland, a car drove off the cliff in the early 70s
Hmm.
and crashed into the hiking trail down below, like several hundred feet below. And the
Wow.
car is still there. They left
Hmm.
the car there for the beauty of the incident. The car is still there, embedded halfway into three-quarters way into the dirt. You could still see the remnants of the car that drove off the cliff. So even after a tragic accident, I often wondered, I said, what happened to the driver? Like, well, I don't know. Nobody seems to know. They want to avoid that part. You know,
Yeah.
but the car is still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the steering wheel, and it's like, wow, it's just
That's
it's
crazy.
yeah, but it's a
Yeah.
beautiful hike though. You know.
Right. And that makes it better, right? Because now you've seen a car in the middle of a hike. You would never see that normally, right?
Yeah. And also, I mean, and a more sensitive, issue, and I want to be delicate with this. When I went to Hawaii, of course, I visited Pearl Harbor, and the Arizona is still there. You see the entire silhouette, the Arizona, right beneath your
Hmm.
feet. And there's still oil. There's still oil coming up from
Hmm.
the engines. There's still oil bubbling to the surface after all these years. And I see it. I mean, you can't make that up. It's like, wow, there's still oil coming out of the tanker.
Hmm.
So it's something that's extremely imperfect and tragic, is still there and remains there and has become a national monument. So some of the biggest tragedies in the world, end up becoming, the imperfections of those become things that we actually embrace. And if you go to Hawaii, I would definitely recommend visiting Pearl Harbor. It's a
Hmm.
very touching afternoon. you know
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of those events that happened in the past really have made us better, in some way or another, because we take those things as lessons from the past, and then we try to not, make those mistakes again, because we
Mhm,
learn from the past, in theory,
mhm,
even though sometimes that's not the case. But
mhm,
for the most part, if you look at the history and the things that have happened, we usually, use those things as something to, as a reference point. And I feel like if we work with this philosophy, we can do so many things in our lives better. If we think about our past as well and the things that have happened, and we take those things as reference points, instead of seeing those things as like, I'm broken, I'm never going to be the same. No, we take that and say, okay, this happened, but how can I use that in order to make my life better today? How can I avoid going back to those moments, and figure out ways to move even higher up, or do something to help other people that have gone through those things move forward in their lives. And so that all those things are really how we can use this philosophy to abandon perfect, to stop thinking that we have to be perfect, that we have to be a certain way, and if we're not, then we're suddenly useless. That's not the case. And think about those things, and really open up your mind and our minds into creating a better future today, using
mhm.
our past, I guess.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Another thing that comes to mind is I just thought of it that when I was in New York, the 9/11 museum, the
Hmm.
memorial there. And you say that we grow from catastrophe. I find that when I was in New York in February, before the pandemic, don't worry, before the major outbreak, um, when I was there, I noticed a very big difference in New Yorkers. And they even say it themselves. I was there like 5, 10, 15 years prior. New York has changed. The mentality has changed. It's much more of a brotherhood. It's much more calmer. It's even less rude. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's known for being very blunt.
Oh,
People are
yes.
still more blunt on the East Coast. They still more blunt. But I just found my experience was if I had a question or I had to ask someone something, or if I was a little confused or something like that, everybody was very helpful. And when I went on a tour of Ellis Island
Mm.
and Statue of Liberty and 9/11 Museum, even the tour guides who I became quite close with, actually became quite chummy. They were saying New York has changed, and I said, something, I notice it as a visitor. I really notice that everybody here is different. Even walking into a local market is a different experience now. I lost
Mm.
a glove once. I dropped a glove and I went back. Normally in New York I wouldn't bother. Don't go back. Don't ask if someone found it. She was so helpful. She goes, someone came in and brought a glove. Is this it? I said, yeah, that's the left one, but I think I dropped the right one too. She goes, oh, tell me where you're staying. I'll call you if it shows up. It was like wow. Am, am I in New York or, am I in the Midwest? I couldn't figure it out. So, I was like, all right. And it was just, it changed, and it changed through that need for them to integrate together and join together. After that, um, they had said after 9/11, people did pull together here in a way that was just unprecedented for New York. So anyway, imperfection leads to a more, a different version of perfection, a
Yeah.
different, yeah, just like the bowl. That's the gold in the bowl is what happened after that
Hmm.
catastrophe there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think definitely there's a lot of things in the world that have happened that, like this, that can, that I can say that changed people. 9/11 was a big one. There also, the bombing in Boston that also changed a lot of things. A
Yeah.
lot of people started, coming together, and the thing that happened in Paris, and all the terrorist attacks, and a lot of different things have really, started are starting to bring the world together. Most recently, the Beirut bombing thing that happened. Well, not the bombing; it was like a factory that exploded a couple days ago, and that was pretty big. And I've seen so many people come together. I just saw this post from this girl that said, please don't send money in other ways other than the Red Cross, because otherwise we won't see it, because the government might take it or something like that. So I feel like social media is really helping people now more than ever, because there's more communication between people. And so using all those imperfections that we have, like social media, into creating a better world, I think it's one of those things that are that are important, that are happening. And I do believe today there was somebody, I don't want to get political, but somebody
Mm.
posted that this person predicted that Trump's not going to win the re-election in 2020, and this person is supposedly someone who's never missed in the past 4 decades. So I'm really hopeful for that. We'll see what happens. But the point is, you know, I think that we look at things that have happened and everything that's happening today, this pandemic, I do truly believe is going to make us so much better. And so many things are happening. I just read an article of all the things that are changing because of the pandemic for better. Technology is getting so much better because of the pandemic. We are learning how to do things remotely now, which is helping for a lot of things. We have more communication between people. This communication that we're having right now is more secure than ever because
Mm.
they've improved it. Zoom at the beginning was having a lot of issues where people were hacking into their meetings and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and they're going to change the world. And I do truly believe that after this, a lot of people, including myself, we're going to be traveling the world like crazy. Hopefully, we're going to figure out ways to do it, more sustainable and more eco-friendly. But I do believe that the economy is going to get better. A lot of things are going to get better because of this,
Mhm.
for everyone. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm not happy that a virus hit. I'm not happy that people got sick and died and are still dying. I'm not
mhm,
happy about the way it came about, but I am happy that our world was shook up and is going to fall back into a different place. I am happy that it happened in terms of the effect of the positive effects of it having happened. I
yeah,
am glad that we've been shook up because I was saying for a while on a certain level, something's got to give here. The way we were all headed, something's got to give. Someone's got to put a foot in the door. I hope it's not a catastrophe again. But I am glad that that shift has happened. I know some people are not yet,
hmm
but I am personally and professionally, I'm glad to have seen a shift because I think it was necessary. You
yeah,
know,
I totally agree. And
yeah.
I think that our time's up. But thank
Yep.
you so much for everything. Any last words, Neil, before we end? And I totally agree with what you just said, by the way.
Okay, good, good. Well, last words, yeah, go hiking.
Go
get, you,
hiking. I
get
love
yourself
that.
out there and go to nature and take a look at what we're saying. Take a look at a hiking trail or anything that you do. You know what I mean?
hmm
And when it comes to perfection, just be kind to yourself again and understand that imperfection is a part of perfection.
hmm
It's poetically a part of it. And what you thought was your checklist from before, take a look because maybe it's not. You know,
I agree.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you so much, Neil. Thank you to everyone for watching us and listening to us as well. Now we have video on YouTube for the first time. So thank you. If you want to look us up on YouTube, go for it. It's Mindfit Podcast. And thank you for everyone who's been listening for, almost a year now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all those people that are donating to this podcast. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. If you have any questions or concerns, please send them to us and we'll be happy to talk about it. So talk to you next week.
Have a good one.
You
All
too.
right.
Thanks.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by MindFit. Please help us to share this podcast with your friends and family to grow this community. And if you'd like to donate to this podcast, or if you'd like to share your comments, questions, or concerns, send them to mindfitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call us directly at 714-328-4661.